Right, we're live now. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. And yeah, it's a Tuesday morning show, and familiar faces. And boy, have I missed my friends. I've missed my friends, James Rowe and Eltel. Yeah, my familiar faces. But you know what? We'll get into this one on the other side of this music intro. Yes. So welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. Yes, the best thing you guys can do now is just subscribe. That's all you have to do. Just subscribe. Get a little pinky up and press the button and subscribe to Cannon Fodder TV. Now, there is a very good reason why we're late for an important date, because we're talking football with my good friends James Rowe and Eltel, the original Godfather. That's why we're late. There's a good reason. But anyway, James, how are you? Welcome back, my friend. How have you been?
Hello, Alex. Great to speak to you again. And also to you, Terry. Nice to be back.
Brilliant. And of course, the original Godfather. Hey!
Oh, yeah, here I am in the Emerald Isle, as they say. And I'll turn the camera around in a little while and show people the River Shannon, the longest river in the British Isles, and show them the hills of Tipperary in the distance. And it's absolutely lovely over here. The heat of last week has gone a bit, so it's the traditional island, a little bit rainy, but absolutely beautiful, lovely, warm people. And smashing, it's beautiful over here. Enjoying my well-earned holidays.
Well, like, it's a bit strange to have people back on the podcast, because I've been doing it, solo since the transfer window started. I thought, it'll be a little bit too much for me to do like the Easy Talk, the Monday evening shows, as well as doing the transfer news. But I hope you guys are enjoying your vacation, your holidays from Cannon Fodder TV. James, your thoughts, with Lokonga, Ben White imminent, Tavares, pre-season, people buying the new kit. James, just break it down for us, if you can. Again, I think there's a lag, isn't there? There's a lag. Oh, dear. All right, Tel, do you want to take up the slack then, Tel?
Yeah, I'll take up the slack. Can I first of all give a big shout out to my friend Tony, who lives right opposite the Arsenal, and he's a smashing lad. And I said I'd give him a shout out. And we were talking only yesterday online about the state of Arsenal affairs, and I think he and Tony and me will go into it a bit later, are all of common accord. And I want to do a big shout out to Tim as well. Tim, who's a namesake of mine, and he's just down the road from where I am now, and I'm meeting him this evening. He's training the Scariff under 13 hurling squad, and he said he'll let me come along. I'm not sure how much use I'll be, but it'll be fascinating to see what goes on. I do love the game of hurling. I do love football too, but hurling is just the most amazing sport. But I thought, can I just start by turning the camera around and showing people, instead of a background like you've got at the moment, I'll turn it round, and what you'll see in the foreground is you'll see County Clare. In the far distance, there's a bit grey this morning. You'll see the hills of Tipperary, and in the middle, you'll see what looks a little bit grey. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's grey. You'll see the River Shannon, the longest river in the British Isles. And at this point, it's called Loch Derg. It's where it expands out into a massive lake or loch. So I'll just turn it around. I hope you get a good view of this. Can you see that, guys?
Let's have a look. There you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's what I'm looking out on now. Absolutely beautiful. Loving it. And as I say, this is the Clare top, which is very similar to the traditional Arsenal kit. They've gone to a very lemony colour this year, but in the old days, Arsenal used to call this colour old gold, and now they just call it yellow, but it's a saffron. It's a deep yellow. There you go.
Brilliant. Right, so James has rejoined us now. James, live on from Amsterdam.
The
Yeah, do you want to
wonders
go
of
for it,
technology,
James?
Just goes
Yeah.
just goes to show that not everything always goes smoothly. But yeah, great to be back. To answer your question with our transfer window, hype. It's pure hype, and I see Arsenal fans, particularly on Twitter. It's all about them. It's all about them. As long as they get the like and the retweet and the follow from an Arsenal player, that's the most important thing. When you call them out about what happens to players, and I've spoken to many, where a transfer has ruined their career. They've been promised the earth, only for so little to be delivered. When I call people out about that and give them examples of players that I've spoken to, I get no feedback, no acknowledgement, nothing at all, because they can't comprehend that. It's all about buying. It's all about my G. It's all about my player. And I see in Lokonga and Tavares the same hype as regards to Saliba and Guendouzi. Exactly the same. I see some Arsenal fans saying that Lukonga is everything we wanted Guendouzi to be, but Guendouzi is much further on. I see Arsenal players waiting for Ben White with bated breath. But what happens to Daniel Ballard? But no, that's not the in thing, is it? To give Daniel Ballard a chance. Daniel Ballard went on loan to Blackpool, and not only did he make a really good impression, he helped to get them promoted to the Championship. And what is his reward? He goes on loan to Millwall and Arsenal buy Ben White. This time last year, Ben White was a Championship player who was very close to signing for Leeds United. And all of a sudden, he's the one we've got to have. If Arsenal do sign Ben White, we've lost Mark McGuinness. But if Arsenal do sign Ben White, that means in the last two transfer windows, they spent in excess of £100 million on Gabriel Magalhaes and Ben White. We are not fighting for a title. We're not fighting for Champions League. We are hemorrhaging money as if it's water and trying to buy for the sake of buying. There's no strategy. We've spoken about Leicester. We've spoken about identifying talent. And look what Leicester do. They go about their business in a neat and concise way, and they get it spot on. I was thinking recently about my interview I had with João Rosso, who worked in the youth setup at Braga. And I said to him, apart from the big three of Portugal, Sporting Lisbon, FC Porto, and Sporting Club de Portugal, Braga are the one that have made the most progress in recent years. What is that down to? He said, well, it starts with the president. He said he's extremely ambitious. Training facilities were improved. The buying of players, giving a pathway to the youth. And look at Braga now. They're an extremely dangerous football team. And they've also spawned players such as Neto and Trincao, who was at Barcelona, and it's now on loan at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I just get the impression with Arsenal at the minute, it's as if people live in a fantasy world. If they live in a fantasy world where buying and getting that like and being in the know is the most important thing, when in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that important, because they won't listen when you tell them what happens to the player who turns to alcohol because the transfer isn't what he thought it was going to be. What happened to the player who's fell out of love with the game because he's become marginalised? When you give people these examples, they're not interested. But some people don't like to hear the truth. And finally, as well, the biggest problem that Arsenal Football Club have still got is still there. You see people having we care do you do hashtags and Cronky out, but they'll still buy the latest top. I haven't brought a new Arsenal shirt for more than 12 seasons. It's 1971 replicas all the way for me. I don't know if it's lack of willpower. I don't know if it's keeping up with the Joneses. But if you look at the quality of the shirts as well, like Arsenal's away shirt, we've joked about it before. It's not an old gold. It's not a royal yellow. It's Lemsip. It's Lemsip. The blue, the third kit. How many times are Arsenal going to play in that kit that people are clamouring to buy it? We are not going to have a very good season. We really are not. People talk about Aubameyang, he's going to be back. No, he's not. He's laughing. He laughs at Arsenal Football Club at £400 a week. And when he leaves Arsenal Football Club, he will be eulogised to the same token that Bergkamp, Ian Wright and Thierry Henry was, which I find absolutely laughable, but it's a sign of the times. It really is a sign of the times. As a club, we are slowly going down, and things will get a lot worse before they get better. And some of the younger fans, particularly the Arsenal fans on social media, they're also culpable of this. They could also stand up and say, right, hang on a minute, I'm going to educate myself about what happens in a transfer. I'm going to educate myself about the previous of that player. I'm going to look to see if that player's done any interviews. I don't know if either of you saw a video that an Aston Villa fan did with Ben White on holiday, where Ben White's choice of language isn't great, and Arsenal are identifying that character to coming to the football club. I know that not everyone is whiter than white and everybody has their moments, but we've got to start to look at character building. And at the minute, we just rinse and repeat all the time. That's all we're doing. For Guendouzi and Saliba, it's now Tavares and Lukonga. Next summer will be the next two. And the summer after that will be the next three. Whilst we ain't going to get anywhere near Champions League football, we haven't won the league for 18 years. And people seem to think that this is the year we're going to get Champions League. I cannot believe, as a young Gooner who was schooled under George Graham, the famous back five, the love of Paul Merson and Anders Limpar and Robert Pires, that we've gone from all that class to this. And I know it's a sign of the times, and I know society changes and football changes, but we're in a really bad way. And I think that first and foremost, we really do need to accept that as a football club and also as a fan base.
But James, amongst the melee, surely you could probably see there's two shining lights in regards to Bukayo Saka and Emerson Rowe, who's been given a number 10 shirt. Again, they have the possibility, an opportunity to become maybe legends in their own right. What do you think about these youngsters?
They're still both very young. They're still both very young, and they cannot be expected to carry the club. I think it's very telling that Emil Smith-Rowe got the number 10 shirt. I think appeasement is really the word. He's a great football player, a really, really good football player. But when he was playing under Unai Emery, was the same eulogy there as there is now. He was playing as well under Unai Emery as what he is now. And I saw that with my own eyes. I saw him come up against the Sporting Lisbon team in November 2018, and he was getting lumps kicked out of him, absolute lumps kicked out of him. But he stood up to the physicality, and it wasn't the best game you've ever seen in your life, but he withstood the pressure. And people need to forget. People also must not forget who was the one that gave Saka and Smith-Rowe their debuts. Who was the one that won the Europa League with Villarreal, who's never won anything in their history? And look at the position Arsenal find themselves in. People love to say, but he wasn't the right man. Well, he was doing all right. Look at us now. Look at us now with an inexperienced manager, an owner who only sees Arsenal as an investment. If you were baking a cake and you wanted to make a really delicious cake, you wouldn't be putting these types of ingredients in, would you? If you really look at it in the cold light of day. But as I say, I will maybe be looked upon as negative, but I've spoken to many players and managers, and they often tell me, and I'll repeat it once again, timing is everything in football. The timing of a transfer, the timing of a manager coming in, the timing of an approach, the timing of the youth academy. And people say, oh, there's no time in football, but it's no coincidence, guys, that when you leave a manager to get on with his job and you do things properly. Look at Villarreal. Do you think that Villarreal is saying, oh, I can't believe we didn't sign that player for £50 million? No, because yes, they're a much smaller club, but they've made more progression in Europe than Arsenal have in recent years. They've actually won something in Europe. If you look at Wolves making more progression than Arsenal in Europe, we're not in Europe this year. So this is the first stage of actual self-reflection and realisation. I hope we're out of Europe for years on end. I really do. Because if we get back into Europe, are we good enough to compete in Europe? I doubt it somehow. So this is the first stage of self-reflection, in my opinion. There's an awful lot of work still to be done. But I said the same things last summer. I said that it will be a very poor season where we might finish 7th or 8th, and that's exactly what happens. I received pelters on social media, absolute pelters, for saying that Arsenal would finish 7th, and we finished 8th. I'm not going to give any predictions this season because life is far too short, and I want to concentrate on my own interviews with professional players. But I just think to myself the lack of awareness as a fan base, and where Arsenal fans on Twitter who are maybe influencers, who in the grand scheme of things have never spoken to professional players and managers, have no idea of club history or individual history, are eulogized to the point where they can do no wrong. But with the responsibility of having such a big fan base, you've got a responsibility to tell the truth. I try to do that with my own interviews, subliminally. Doesn't always work, but it's an opportunity every time something is published to kind of get that message out there.
Eltel, you have the mic.
Well, I don't know. I've been talking to I don't know if you two have heard about this. Arsenal are introducing a thing called the Arsenal token. I think it's about 165. You buy these tokens. It's a bit like it's a reward scheme, you see, but except that you have to buy it. It's a bit like in our area, there was Green Shield stamps and all this stuff. And you buy these tokens, and then that ostensibly, if you have enough, that then gives you some sort of a say in what the following season kit colour is going to be like, what shade of red or cherry or orange or whatever they want to call it. And then you have some sort of a say on a cup final ticket. Now, I was chatting to Tony last night, and we were both saying, you know, if it comes to that and we don't go out and buy, it's a cryptocurrency. And if you don't buy these tokens, and they won't let you into, please God, one day another cup final, well, then that's just mad. If you're like Tony, and he used to go to every single game and his mates, home and away, they go. Andrew goes out even in pre-season. He goes all over the world following Arsenal. And these guys are now being told they've got to buy these tokens. That's ridiculous. It's just money straight into Stanley Kroenke's pocket. And I would advise people, I'm not going to buy a single token. You can do what you like, but I can see it. It's just a money-making exercise. And really, the football is front of house. But what's really going on is it's a money-making thing. We saw it with Kroenke getting together with some of the other chairmen and trying to get themselves into a no relegation Super League. That blew up in their faces, but that will come back in the next 2 or 3 years. And I think at the moment what Arsenal are doing is biding their time. I think Arteta knows the actual game is up, because either you do what Leicester are doing, which is you buy sensibly and you build team spirit, and that takes some time. Over the years, when I've seen Arsenal do well, you can see the building up of the great double teams, and I've seen them do both doubles, you know, and it takes a while. It takes 2 or 3 or 4 years of buying well, of promoting your youth players. I mean, we had some terrific youth players come through. At first, Tony Adams looked good, but not brilliant, and he got better and better, and his timing got better. You had Ray Parlour, you had all these guys coming through from the youth team, and then you go out and you buy your Thierry Henrys and so on. And I don't think the fan base have got that patience. And the only thing is, I think Kroenke's no fool. If he lets go of Arteta, he's going to pay a king's ransom to bring in another manager and pay Arteta off. So he's done a little bit of calculation that you might as well keep Arteta there, buy some players, and keep the fans. I'm not sure the fans are going to be happy, because just to reiterate what James is saying, this team is nowhere near good enough for the top 4. Nowhere near good enough. Do you think that Man City, with all their wealth, are not going to continue buying, and Liverpool and Manchester United, Leicester are buying already? This team will not be remotely near the top 4 by Christmas. And then the fans, assuming that the pandemic has calmed down a bit, and there's no guarantee of that, but if there are a lot of fans in the stadium, then I can see a lot of these people calling for Arteta's head. And then if that gets really bad, eventually what tends to happen is the directors go along with the fans when it really gets bad, and then Arteta goes, and I think he's sitting there waiting for it. He's saying to himself, look, I'll continue to try and do what I'm trying to do, but if they sack me, then that's fine, because either I'll go back to Man City, I'll have a whole load of payoff money, or I can go to a team, maybe a Basque team or a team in some part of Spain. So we're kind of keeping him there. I mean, I'm quite an Arteta fan. I can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to play good football, and then he's caught between the two stools of either creating a fantastic defence or going for all-out football. I don't think he's quite decided which one he's going for. And we all know football is a low-scoring game, as we saw, with England getting through to the Euro final. Southgate banked on holding a good defence and hoping to score a goal. And, of course, we've seen that with the first double team. Nobody could score against them. In fact, the second double team were like that. If we went 1-0 up, that by and large, that was it. So I think Arteta's trying his best. He's a bit of a tactician. Goodness knows what he's got Inaki Kanya there for, because he's the guy that I think must have advised him to get rid of Emi Martinez, who seems to be like a phenomenal goalkeeper at the moment for Argentina as well as his club Aston Villa, and they brought in Runarsson. What are they doing? And now they're messing about with paying over the odds for one of the England sub goalkeepers, either Johnston, who's quite a big guy, and this other guy who's 6'2". I noticed Spurs had just bought a goalkeeper, and I looked him up. He's 6'4", and his strength is coming for crosses. Great. That's what Emi Martinez did. He dominated the area. And every goalkeeper we go for, it always says weaknesses, doesn't dominate the area, doesn't come for crosses. Well, if you're going to do that, you're going to have a pretty good big centre back in there. Otherwise, you're going to be prey to the ball coming in. And of course, in the two pre-season games, we lost goals from dead ball situations and the ball in the air. So overall, I'm not very hopeful. I know there's some new signing, but you know what? Kolasinac was once a new signing that we all hoped would be wonderful. And you go through all these players that we signed, and we starts off with hope. And then when you see them on the pitch, you scratch your head and say, what person decided he was good enough for Arsenal? What person decided Kolasinac? It's just, I don't want to vilify the guy, but we've seen him play. We know his game inside out. Who thought he was of Arsenal standard? Who? Stand up at the back of the class. Who are you? Who are you?
But Tel, what's your thoughts about the signings that Arsenal have made so far? And does that not have like a detrimental effect, a developmental effect for the academy players? I mean, James mentioned some players who have been fighting. They've been with Arsenal for the longest time, and yet they see Arsenal spending millions of pounds on a player in their position. It diminishes their opportunity to play anytime soon, if ever, in the senior squad. Lokonga,
well, as James was saying, this Saliba thing highlights it all. We go and pay all that money on Saliba. We've got some cracking players coming through, Daniel Ballard, for instance. We've got some great players coming through. And from what I hear on the ground, that Arteta's a bit difficult. He can be a bit difficult if he sets his face against you. And I think he just doesn't get on with Saliba. From what I read of his stats, nobody dribbles past him. He's got what it takes, albeit he's a young guy. So I fully understand. Actually, I'm sorry to say this, but Arteta made some massive errors when Saliba lost his mum. All that went on. He's a young 19-year-old, and then his club wanted him to play in the French Cup final, which for Saint Etienne was a big number, and because he was due back at Arsenal by a few days, Arsenal refused. That's a massive slap and then they only lost by a goal, and the word on the ground was if Saliba had been playing, they might have won the cup. So you've got all those slaps. You've got he's even said himself that Arteta only watched him play 2.5 games. So, and a centre-back doesn't touch the ball a lot. So give him a few more games, Arteta. I think there's been words. I think and for whatever's gone on between the two of them, it hasn't worked. And that's a real shame, because you shouldn't let your personal feelings get in the way of a player. If the player's good enough, you should learn. You and I have been involved in working with kids at school, and you work with these young people, and sometimes they don't like the look of you, and you wonder why. But you work with it, and you keep smiling, and you work to get them on your side. And I think his man management is definitely questionable. His buying and selling of goalkeepers has been absolutely awful, and that's one of the key things when you're building a championship winning team. Your spine, your goalkeeper, your centre back, your central midfielder, and your forward, they are key posts, and we're messing it up continually. And Saliba is a great example. Martinez is another example. And while we all live in hope, of course we do. That's what football's about. The big 4-letter word, hope. But it doesn't look good, and we're not promoting enough from the youth squad and youth team. And I certainly would concur with James. There's no way we're going to be anywhere near the top 4 by Christmas. And then the only question is, will the fans, if we're in the stadium then, will they be calling for Arteta's head? And then will the directors and Stanley Kroenke, fight back against that, or will they appease the fans? It's a mess. And when you think all along the line, Leicester have already bought their 2 players when the transfer window opened, and they're smoothly going along with a good manager, and they'll do well again next season. And Arsenal, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult between here and Christmas. Let's put it like that.
James, anyone tuning in now must think that we are prophets of doom. Is there any hope? Is there any anything positive to look forward to, James, in the coming season, James?
Well, to say prophets of doom, what we do in this podcast, which is different to different podcasts, you've got 2 vastly experienced Arsenal supporters that have seen an awful lot, as well as someone who's been supporting the club for more than 30 years, who interviews professional players and managers at all levels of world football, and has a publisher in the Secret Footballer website. So the knowledge that we're giving and the information that we're giving is completely different to what you will hear anywhere else, because it's not about sensationalism. It's not about individuality. It's not about making sure that we are the men. We are just messengers who provide information to give people other things to think about. I think that this season we can look at the positives as to how well Saka and Smith Rowe will continue in their development, and be interesting to see how Tierney comes through an entire full season, hopefully unscathed. Tell makes a great point about goalkeepers. Martinez had an amazing presence as a goalkeeper, and I reflect on my interview with the living legend that is Bob Wilson. And Bob Wilson was telling me about the time they were training with David Seaman, Richard Wright, and Bob Wilson. And there was something off about Richard Wright. And Bob Wilson turned to David Seaman and said, "What do you think is wrong here?" And he says, "Presence. He doesn't seem to have a big enough presence." That is something Martinez, Arsenal fans on Twitter love to tell you wanted to leave, but what they don't tell you is our defence as a collective looked much more reassured when they had Martinez behind them as to when they have Leno behind them. You may also remember the penalty win against Liverpool at Anfield in the League Cup, where Leno took it upon himself to bang his chest and say he's the number one, and he's proved that he's the number one. Leno, like Aubameyang, has got it made at Arsenal. Absolutely made. He's not a good enough number one, but Arsenal spent £20 million on him, so therefore he's playing every single week. And when he makes mistakes, you don't see any reflection. You don't see any self-awareness. We have a captain who turned up late for a North London derby, the biggest game of the season. Where were the reprisals and ramifications of that? They weren't there, were they? But his new haircut's wonderful, and he's a real G, according to Arsenal fans. but he turned up late for a North London derby. We seem to be all the bad characteristics of players seem to be always being defended by Arsenal fans, particularly the young Arsenal fans. All of our heroes, Liam Brady to Paul Merson to the others that we've all spoken about on this podcast, Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry, we can all give you footballing reasons as to why they were amazing footballers. But the younger fans of Arsenal know it's all about, oh, he followed me on Twitter. Oh, he gave me a like. Oh, isn't it wonderful? But in the grand scheme of things, how is that important? Because then it's all about them. We be a football club. And there were only 2 football clubs in England bigger than what we were. Manchester United and Liverpool. And then us. People talk about getting back into the Champions League. Chelsea have won it twice. So even if we get back into it, what's the point? We're not going to win it. But yet our neighbours 8 kilometres away from us have won it twice. And people love to talk about the money involved in Chelsea. It's not just about the money. You don't get to that level of success, and especially in European competition, just about money. Things have been put in place behind the scenes to make sure they get over the line. And Chelsea winning 2 Europa Leagues and 2 Champions Leagues, I'm not going to see that in my lifetime with my club. I'm not going to see that at all. We used to be London's flagship. Nowhere near now. Nowhere near. And it's just so sad because Eltel talks about this token cryptocurrency, a massive sign of the times. It's another way to rob and hoodwink fans. Buy the latest shirt. No, you don't have to buy the latest shirt. As I say, I haven't bought a shirt for more than 12 seasons. I might buy a match day program, but that's not every single one. That's of the game that I'm attending or a game that doesn't come around too often for your collection. But other than that, we are more like a brand. We used to be a football club. We used to be a highly respected football club here in the Netherlands where I live. When I tell people I'm an Arsenal supporter, they say to me, "What is happening with your football club? What is?" They say about Bergkamp, they say about Henry, they say about Overmars, and they say to me, "What has happened and what is happening to your football club?" Because we are becoming a brand that coincidentally play football. Whereas if you look at the best teams in the world, if you look at the way that the clubs improve, because football is an organism where improvement is always possible. Leicester were a championship club and they've won the FA Cup and they're playing in Europe. If we go down, do you think we'd take a leaf out of Leicester's book and think, oh, look what they did, maybe we can replicate that? And I've been called mad on many occasions, but we are on a slippery slope where eventually, between the next 3 and 5, if Kroenke stays and we go through the motions, we will drop. People think it's madness, but it's not madness. If you think about 20 odd years of top four, and then 8th, and then 8th, and then people clinging on to that Conference League. Oh, wouldn't it be great? For who? For who would it be great for? For the away fan that can attend the game in the Ukraine, or can attend the game in Albania, or can attend the game in Azerbaijan, or for the players that would have to travel such a distance and then play a Premier League game a couple of days later away from home. We have had I've said this before, but I'll say it once again. We have had our time in Europe and we wasted it. Absolutely wasted it. I was at Wembley when we played Champions League games at Wembley. I was at Highbury. I was at the Emirates. And even right up until the Monaco game in 2015, it was all about isn't this lovely? Well, what's lovely about getting whipped by Monaco? What's lovely about that? What's lovely about getting beat by Ostersons? What's lovely about struggling against Rennes? People often like to say, oh, they're just a pub team. No, they're not a pub team. If you look at what they're doing, I mean, I would often prioritise European games above domestic. And I did that for years, and it's good memories. But I can't tell you the next time we're going to be in Europe. But I hope it will be a long, long time, because there is no quick fix. This summer should have been a summer of self-reflection. But oh no, we carry on. We carry on as if we're a Champions League team. spending 50 million on a defender. In what income can substantiate that? You're not in Europe. You barely finish top half, and you spend 50 million pounds on a defender. There is no business sense. And as I say, I feel for Daniel Ballard because he, like Smith Rowe and like Saka, deserves to be in that starting 11. But Gabriel Magalhaes, who was on loan at Troyes and on loan at Dynamo Zagreb, had a good season at Lille, and that's all it was, a good season. He's our man. But he also made some mistakes last year. But no, nobody likes to talk about that because it doesn't fit the narrative. We are slowly coming away from being a reputable, respected football club to just being a brand that just plays football. And as a fan of 30 plus years, this is my 32nd season as an Arsenal fan. And it's very, very sad to see. It's like, I don't mean to be, I mean, I'm sure younger fans will maybe laugh about what I'm about to say, but it's like falling in love with your partner. It's like when you fell in love with your partner and she looked after herself and had great class and grace and style. And then as the years have rolled on, the neglect is set in to what we find ourselves in now. And it's just very sad, really. I mean, I look forward to returning to the UK for Arsenal games, but I'm going to be extremely well disciplined, where I'm not going to go to half the volume that I went in the previous 10 seasons here from Amsterdam.
Here's a quick footnote before I go to Eltel. I've seen James put out wonderful tweets since I've known James for 3 years now, James, more or less. And
Time has flown.
It has flown. And I've seen the tweets, James getting vilified just for giving an opinion, an intelligent tweet. Because James, as he says, 5 years and running of interviewing not only managers, but players, past, present, and future players in our sport getting vilified on Twitter. I'm not having it. So if I find out you are one of the subscribers on the channel or following us on Twitter, we're going to block you. There's no reason you can give an opinion if you like to, but when using vulgar language and you're threatening the words, I'm not going to have that. Okay, so we're going to support James on all platforms, including Twitter, just because he gave an opinion. An intelligent opinion about a subject that people feel free to vilify James Rowe. I'm not having it. Anyway, tell.
What you say is very interesting about the Twitter sphere, because it's become a forum for an awful lot of people attacking other people without any knowledge of what's going on. And occasionally I bump into Arsenal fans who say the most crass, unfounded statements, and I don't get involved because I think, well, my dad used to say to me, if you can't reason with a drunken man or an idiot, so if they start all this nonsense stuff, I just ignore it, because you can't turn people's heads if they've got more opinion than fact, for crying out loud, And as a kid growing up, I used to stand down at Arsenal in the Clock End or up at the North Bank, and I'd be listening to the older people who'd been following Arsenal for decades before me, and I'd respect what they said and their opinions, because mine is not formed in those days on enough matches and enough ups and downs of football.
You've got to, if the person is using vulgar language or threatening language to you, you have to draw the line in the sand. I mean, I've got no qualms if someone's got more football intelligence than I do. I don't know everything, but I draw the line where people are attacking you with vulgar language and threatening violence. You've got to draw that line there. I mean, I understand what you're saying. You've got to listen to people older than you, but I draw the line when a person is using vulgar language. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you should say that, because obviously, that is unacceptable, and absolutely draw the line. But it's interesting. I didn't know that Ben White had been on some sort of TV channel and using bad language. That's unnecessary, and you can't do it in any place of work that I've ever worked, or you and I have worked in schools and places like that. Yeah, it's just it doesn't happen. It cannot happen, and And if Ben White is thinking that that's okay, then I'm afraid I'm a bit worried about the sort of lack of character. It's always unnecessary. My parents didn't swear. And yes, if you whack your thumb with a hammer, you might let out a swear. But and if it's going to be part of common parlance, and you're hoping to be a top sportsman, clear it out of your vocabulary, and certainly don't turn on people, because that's madness. And it can happen. I've seen a few rows up in when they threw all the North Bank into the clock end. And there was some right lunatics around me and my mate Sully, who might watch this. Hello, Sully, if you're watching. And me and Sully were top Arsenal fans and so on. But some of the stuff that used to go on around us was absolutely horrendous. And I'll tell you the kind of mentality we had. We were under the clock, and one match I didn't go to, and I gave my ticket to a friend who had a daughter of 19, and she went to the match. And when the opposition scored, they kicked her seat in. Now, those seats were made of plastic, so you had shards of plastic flying around. I remember I dislocated a little finger when two or three guys behind me, when we scored, threw themselves on top of me. And being a musician, a dislocated finger is not funny. And Sully was with me, and he said, "What?" And I said, "Hang on, I put my little finger back in straight away." It was sore for a while, and after that, we just said we're going to have to get out of it, and we did write to the club, and God bless them, they then said, "Fair enough. We can understand what's going on." And Sully and I are not Wallies, I mean, he's a tough guy, but you don't expect to sort of go to a match and have that kind of behaviour going on around you. And what they did was they relocated us into the East Stand, so we had fantastic views in the upper tier. But yeah, there are some absolute Wallies on the Twitter sphere producing some awful stuff. And I would advise anybody, if you start getting attacked, just block them, or just don't take it seriously, because unfortunately it's open season now for that kind of bad behaviour and bad language. And I'm sorry that James has had to bear the sort of brunt of some really crass behaviour.
Let's go into the live chat.
Well,
yes. Sorry, James. Go on, James. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, last summer, I when Gabriel Maché signed, I put out a tweet by saying, "What does this do for the pathway of Ballard and McGuinness?" And not every signing is a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. With the experience that I have with players and managers, I turned my phone off and I went to the cinema. I come back home and turned my phone on. I had more than 75 likes, retweets, and comments to the tune of "You don't know anything." And I tried to say to people, I deal with professional players and managers. I don't know many people who have spoken to more than 350 players and managers at all different levels of world football. And you can read my work. You can read what I write. It's there. My name is on it. So if I'm telling you something, it's because I've spoken to a player, and a player has elaborated on this or spoken about that. And I just think, particularly with the Arsenal fans, they place so much importance on social media when in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that important. I've seen some people get really, really overexcited about getting a like from a player, or being tweeted at by a player, or speaking to a professional on a podcast form. Well, I've been doing it almost every day for 5 years. If I did that, oh my God, I've spoken to this one. Oh my God, I've spoken to that one. No, I'm professional. So I treat Jamie Carragher, Simon Barker, Graham Potter, Bob Wilson, Kevin Campbell, and Ricky van Wolfswinkel all the same, because everyone has got a story to tell. I'm now exclusive to the Secret Footballer website. You can only read my interviews there. And upcoming interviews include the likes of Warren Barton, John Solarco, Brian Roy, and Torsten Fink. Torsten Fink managed David Villa and Andres Iniesta. Managed them. and he's going to be telling me, and you'll be able to read in my interview with him about what it's like to manage those players and the anecdotes that those players have said. So I look forward to seeing how they're received. But as I say, I can only concentrate on what I do. I now only give my podcast, my opinions on podcast form, hence my forthright opinions today. And we'll see how that goes. But I now only use my social media to put out my own interviews and to maybe give an opinion every now and again and say hello to a few people. But other than that, it's really not important in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, well, let's see if we can go into the live chat. It's just been so many comments on live chat. See if we can catch up with everything that's been said. I've got Don Arsenal. Good morning, Alex, and hope you and the family are good. Good morning to you, Don Arsenal. Alex, Ben White and Varane, which one is the better sign-in? Tell?
Well, Varane is very experienced, of course, and Ben White, as long as he doesn't start speaking, has a big future behind him, as they say. I mean, my thing about Ben White is, here we are, one of the number one team, one of the top teams in Britain. Okay, how comes we didn't buy him a year ago when we could have bought him for a fifth of what we're currently buying him for? Where's our scouting team there? Why haven't we got some top scouts? Of course, we sacked them all. Oh yeah, we forgot about that. We sacked all the scouts. Well, for crying out loud, Arsenal, get your act together. Stop buying £50 million players. Buy the same player a year before, and you'll get him at a fifth of the price.
The Perkins one says, good morning, guys. And Pap also says, good morning. Good morning to you guys. Ray from Arsenal Fan Circle says, hello, Eltel, James, and Alex. Good morning to you as well. It's been early morning over there in the States, maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Ray is very dedicated.
He is. Ray says, hurling, one of the fastest games in the world. Is that true, Tel?
Yes, it's the world's fastest ball field sport.
Wow.
So you have to put that into context. The field, the hurling field is enormous. They have 15 aside, and currently Limerick, who are probably the best team around, these guys are so crazily fit, it's mad. They were overrun by Tipperary in the first half there about a week ago, and they came out like lions or antelopes or whatever you want to call it, and they roared around the pitch. So they are athletes. So in fact, so many Arsenal players call themselves athletes first, and then soccer players second. But hurling, I'll just show people this badge here. I don't know if you can see it. Where is it? There. If I translate that badge, this is the County Clare badge, and translating it says first into battle and last out. And we used to be like that at Arsenal. The players would roar onto the pitch. The players would be busting the gut to play. Unfortunately, they're only busting the gut to go to Barclays Bank these days.
But also says, what do you think about Arsenal buying the 18-year-old striker? Was it necessary? I think this is a youngster from Fulham, I believe.
Yeah.
Like James?
Yeah.
I think I know your thoughts about Arsenal.
Well, you know, they love to spend money, didn't they? I suppose it's to appease fans. I think we used to be measured on trophies. Now we're measured on how much we spend, but it's not sustainable to pay £50 million if you're not playing in Europe and you don't have a massive income in terms of European football. It really isn't sustainable. This time last year, Ben White had just finished a loan spell with Leeds. And now, this time last year, he was a championship player. And a year later, he's the man we've got to have. Well, you know, did anyone see when he was at Leeds how well he played? Did the Arsenal fans that eulogise him already know that he went on loan to Leeds? I'm sure there's people watching our podcast today that think to themselves, I didn't know he was on loan at Leeds. Well, I did. If you have to prepare for Warren Barton and John Solarco and Brian Roy and Jamie Carragher, then you have to know your onions, and you can't skim. And I just think Mark McGuinness as well, he's gone to Cardiff. He'll be a Premier League player before too long. And people will say, oh, we shouldn't let him go. But we seem to be being led by a fan base when it should be the other way around. If we had competence at the highest level of this football club, we wouldn't be having conversations like this. But we are, because we are a brand masquerading as a football club, and a huge football club at that. There's only 2 clubs in England bigger than what we are in terms of overall success. But we're kind of selling ourselves and selling our souls a little bit, which is a massive shame. It's like, for me, since Chelsea have won the Champions League, all those dreams I had of Arsenal winning it, they kind of subsided, because I know we're never going to win it, and we're certainly never going to win it twice. So, we've had our time, and we was in it for 20 plus years. Imagine being in it for 20 plus years, and then your neighbours who are 8 kilometres away from you win it twice within a decade. It leaves a little bit of a sour taste in that respect.
Yeah.
Can I just say about the Champions League? I mean, I was working hard like everybody does, to earn a crust, and then I'd go down there on a Wednesday night, and in the qualifiers, of course, you're playing teams certainly at the start that Arsenal used to do very, very well against. They started to struggle the last few years, and you'd be there on a rainy November night, a freezing cold December night, and so on. And when you finally got through to the sort of real part of the league, when you got to the quarterfinals, you'd play a Barcelona or a Real Madrid, and by and large, nearly always lost. So you went through all that agony of bitterly cold weather. They don't make it comfortable, even in the new stadium. Unless you go to club level, once the match is over, there's nowhere to even sit. They kick you out of your seated area, and yes, you can have a drink at a bar, or you can buy yourself an incredibly expensive hot dog or cup of tea, but there's nowhere to sit, and it's freezing cold. I often used to do that just to allow the queue for the tube to sort of go down. And then the moment, as I say, you get to the spring and you're in the real meat of the competition, Arsenal are out. Well, that's no fun. It might be making the club some money, but it just shows we weren't up to scratch. So it's not all it cracks up to be. And in the last few years, we started to have massive trouble against some of the so-called also-rans, who I remember a few of the teams we had terrible trouble getting past. So the Champions League isn't all it's cracked up to be. And of course, I remember Nottingham Forest winning it 2 years in succession. I remember Aston Villa winning it. They've got the star above their badge. Chelsea have got 2 stars above their badge. Nottingham Forest have got 2 stars. We haven't got any stars.
Well, yeah. All right, so the first that came to mind was Bukayo Saka and Emerson Rowe, 2 stars. But anyway, Static says, James, I agree. Braga have improved a lot the last 10, 15 years. Arsenal need to learn from them as well as Leicester. Also, you're correct. Fake positivity is the new thing. It's disgusting. Then he goes on to say, James, respect to you, man. Everything you have said is so true. Also, I haven't purchased any football shirts and merchandise, hats, scarves for the last 7 years now. The best decision I've ever made. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Willpower is also very important, and we love our football, but there is more to life. I'm a huge football fan, but also an avid traveller, travelling to different parts of the world, and it broadens your horizons. But people might look at that comment from an Arsenal fan and think Braga, Leicester. But if you really dig down, you know that those are the teams that have made progress. If you really know your onions and you see things like that. And I just think to myself, a lot of Arsenal fans, it's very much, we're top 6. No, we're not top 6. We're 8th. We're not a top 6 club. We finished 8th last year and 8th the season before that. But if you didn't know any better, we're still a Champions League club. And we've been out of the Champions League now for, I believe, 4 years. I think this will be the 4th season we've been out of the Champions League. We won't be in it anytime soon. I think it'll be unrecognisable by the time we get back in it. But we had 20 years to win it, and it was always participation is more important than trying to win the thing. I remember being at Arsenal Dynamo Kiev at Wembley. Oh, isn't this lovely? I remember being at Arsenal Schalke at Highbury. Oh, isn't this lovely? I remember being at Monaco at the Emirates. Oh, isn't this lovely? And I remember one conversation I had with an elder Arsenal fan when I went to Arsenal Dynamo Kiev when we was at Wembley all them years ago. I was a very, very young teenager. And I remember saying to an elder Arsenal fan in the politest possible way, because in the programme they had like who were in all the groups, and you saw like Barcelona and PSV Eindhoven and Real Madrid, and I was trying to explain to him that we're in this competition to win it, but we're not in it to just make up the numbers, but we were in it just to make up the numbers. I mean, I watched a lot of Arsenal in the Europa League, and people say, oh, Rennes, they're a pub side. Well, no, they're not a pub side. They, like Braga and like Leicester, have been making progress in recent years. You can go through every country in Europe, there'll be a club which has made progress in recent years. For example, Rennes have done well in France to come from the nether regions of League One to really get themselves into Europe. Vitesse and AZ Alkmaar here in the Netherlands, exactly the same. The gap has been slightly closed. And I think with a lot of Arsenal fans, somebody tweeted me the other day, and they may well have a point where they only watch Arsenal. They don't watch what goes on outside. But if you want to have a better understanding of what goes on in a game, and rather than say about that player because he looks really good on FIFA or because he looks really good on YouTube, YouTube makes every player look good. YouTube makes every single player look good. It's like, for example, I've often been criticised for saying that Albrighton and Ward-Prowse, both fantastic footballers, good enough to play for Arsenal. Oh no, they're rubbish. Albrighton is a FA Cup winner and a Premier League winner with Leicester. Not with Arsenal, not with Man United, not with Liverpool, not with Chelsea, but with Leicester. Ward-Prowse, he takes a wonderful free kick. When was the last time we scored regularly from free kicks? Well, when the ball is put down and you think, well, hang on a minute, that's a chance. That's a chance for us there. You know, Thierry Henry used to do that. Paul Merson used to do that. And we now have once in a blue moon where Aubameyang might take it early. But I think we're in for a very long, hard season. And but a lot of what I've said today, I said last summer. So it's just like a rinse and repeat. I mean, it's very enjoyable to speak to you both, but with the fan base, there's no progression within the fan base. It would have been great this summer to think, well, hang on a minute, we're out of Europe for the first time in a quarter of a century. We've got to cut our cloth accordingly. But oh no, we're going to spend 50 million on that. We're going to spend 20 million. Lukonga, he scored 3 goals in 78 games. 3 goals in 78 games, and Arsenal paid £20 million for him. Does that sound like good business to both of you?
Well, to make it worse, we're trying to spend, is it 30 million on a goalkeeper who is questionably good or bad, and we let Emmy go for under 20 million. None of it makes sense. It's as if the guy in charge of the finances has had a few whiskies and he's just throwing the money around.
But it's not just him, Terry. It's not just him. It's the collective. It is the collective. I go back to Braga. Braga's ambition started with their president. I mean, they know they're never going to eclipse a Benfica, a Porto, or Sporting Lisbon. But what they have done is they've reduced the gap. And it starts with admitting where we are. And I say that we used to be London's flagship club. We're not that anymore. And we haven't been for quite some time. You know, you need to cut your cloth accordingly. Daniel Ballard should have a squad number. Mark McGuinness should have a squad number. But no, we'll send Ballard on loan to Millwall, and that's his reward, and we'll buy Ben White. Is Ben White better than Daniel Ballard? Is he? Daniel Ballard has also been capped at international level. I'm sure many people listening to the podcast today don't know that. But yes, he has been capped at international level for Northern Ireland. I know that they have a smaller pool of players to choose from, but Daniel Ballard has already been deemed good enough to play international football for his country, like Ben White. But oh no, we'll get rid of Ballard and we'll send him on loan. And what does that do to the mentality of a player? We spoke many times last season. If you are a young footballer and you have the pick of all your clubs, where are you not going to go? Well, you're not going to go to Arsenal, are you? You're not going to go to Arsenal. And I go back to my point that I spoke with Charlie Gilmore, who came through the Arsenal youth setup, went on loan, signed for Norwich, and went on loan to Telstar here in the Netherlands. And he said to me, he said, James, he said, when you come through that setup, you're given the best coaches, the best nutrition, the best facilities. He said, and when you leave the football club, you automatically think there's a queue of clubs queuing around the block, not in an arrogant sense, but just because you've come through that system. But what they don't tell you is at Championship level and Premier League level, they don't really want to take a chance on a young boy in a man's game. And that's the truth. But then again, the facts that I come out with from my own interviews and the knowledge and that kind of thing, obviously people that are big on Twitter or big with influencers, they're not interested in that. But yet managers who have managed at the highest level, players that have played at the highest level, they're not speaking to these people, are they? But they are speaking to me. So I always try to educate people with the examples that I give, and looking forward to upcoming interviews only with the Secret Footballer these days. Hopefully I'm publishing a little bit later today. And upcoming interviews include the likes of John Solarco, Warren Barton, Brian Roy, Torsten Fink, and also Dean Hammond, who played at Leicester and came through at Leicester when things were starting to rise up. So it'll be very interesting to see how they are received.
Brilliant. Tel, here's a question for you in the chat. Let's be honest here. Do you guys think Arteta sat down and thought we need Tavares and Lokonga, or is it because that they were cheap?
I think, I mean, I haven't seen Lokonga play. I must have been over here when he was playing. I saw Tavares. He looks good. He's a real athlete anyway. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're. I mean, if they're going to pay 50 million for a centre back, then they aren't looking for cheap players. In fact, it looks like it's the opposite. But I think Arsenal, as I said earlier, I think Arteta's caught in a cleft stick. He doesn't know whether he wants an attacking team or a defending team. He doesn't know if he wants to spend big money or do a Leicester and buy players early. And this thing about buying Ben White for 50 million, I mean, he would have to be, in a year or two's time, a world-class player to justify that kind of money. And I haven't seen him play enough to say he's that good. I know he's weak in the air. If you look it up anywhere, they say he's got a real weakness in the air. So if they're going to have him there, they're going to have some super system that he's not going to be caught out against big centre forwards. It looks, but to me, like we're lurching, like again, we use the analogy of the drunk. It's like the drunk that's lurching across the pavement from left to right. 1 minute they're paying 50 million, then they're trying to get some players on the cheap. Then they're trying to, then they got rid of Raul Sanheli. Then they brought in another guy. Then they got we're lurching backward. We got rid of all our coaches. Then we bought Stat DNA. The club is like it's like a car that the steering wheel, nobody's holding the steering wheel, and it's lurching from one side of the road to the other. And that's at the heart of it. Any club that doesn't have somebody looking into the middle distance and know where the club is going is going to lurch around. And that's exactly what we're doing. And mainly because our owner is an American who doesn't understand British football. And the perfect example was where 2 or 3 months ago he tried to sort of hoodwink us all, and behind our backs, no discussion with the fans, he tried to railroad us into a no relegation Super League. There was no discussion of the Green Shield stamps or the tokens, and you can have a say in the club at that point. He really does not understand the game. It's blindingly obvious. I've no idea whether Daniel Eckwood would be any better. Personally, I'd like a group of people on board, maybe a few ex-players on the board, to hold the steering wheel steady and not keep lurching from, we'll have no scouts. Oh, we'll have stat DNA. Now we need some scouts back. How can you run a big business like Arsenal are when you're lurching around? Well, of course you can, because the guy in charge of it and his son have so much money that even the money we're splashing around at the moment isn't big money to them. It must hurt them like hell to spend 50 million on this Ben White guy, but that's probably the same as us dropping a £50 note and cursing because we can't find it. I mean, it's probably annoying to them, but it's not going to make a hole in their bank account.
Static says, Alex, I can't believe this is the first time I've ever watched James and LTL with you. This is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Brilliant.
James, over the last couple of days, with the people in the live chat has said to me, and what about this player? Why haven't Arsenal gone for this player? But one player that literally kind of got the alarm bells going, James Ward-Prowse. James Ward-Prowse wouldn't cost us much. Age 25, 26 still. Why can't Arsenal go?
So much experience.
Yeah,
and ever present in the Southampton team for the last 3 seasons. Takes a great penalty, but he wasn't there to take one in the final, was he? And this is the small details. Takes a great penalty, James Ward-Prowse, but he couldn't take one at Wembley against Italy. Again, a footballer who I rate very highly. His free kick taking is really, really good, but Arsenal, as Terry says, we lurch from one to the other. It's as if appeasement of the fans is the most important thing. We don't have the bottle to take and to make unpopular decisions. We don't. And that's your starter for 10. Aubameyang, for example, since he's got that contract, turns up late for a North London derby, rides around in a gold Lamborghini, following fans for the sake of following fans. You're supposed to be a professional. And I go back to my point. If you are sent away from AC Milan, of all places, due to lack of discipline, then there is your starter for 10. These same qualities dogged him at Dortmund and St Etienne, but yet the red carpet is rolled out by Arsenal. That's completely wrong. We need to. We've been saying for the last couple of years, you need to identify characters, but it's as if the club now, it's about appeasing the fans. It's about appeasing the fans. Like, for example, the video that Lukonga did. Was there any information about what happened before? Was there any information about how many goals he scored, how many assists he's provided, what youth football was like for him? But no, just have it on video and everything will be fine. I go back to my my interview with Raul Fox last year, and we spoke about Norwich and about Newcastle and about Tottenham, and he was also capped at international level for Montserrat. And when I asked him that, I said to him, I said about being capped by Montserrat, and he said, James, he said, you know what? He said, never in a million years when I woke up this morning did I think you'd ask me that. I said, well, you've got so many football writers trying to get into such a small space. You have to do what you can to stand out. But it's as if with the presentation of new footballers, there's no digging into the background. I haven't seen anyone ask Nuno Tavares about coming through the youth setup at Benfica. None of it. It's all about the gloss. It's all about the shiny nature. But what led to that player being in the position they're in? I think it's quite negligible for Arsenal to have spent £20 million on a player who scored 3 goals in 78 games. If you come to me with a dossier of 5 names and you say that Lukonga, he looks really good, he scored 3 games in 3 goals in 78 games, I would say to you, right, put that dossier in the bin. We need goals from midfield. We need a Ramsey again. We need a Paul Merson, for example. We need a Ray Parler. But 3 goals in 78 games. But he's eulogised already. People talk about him playing with Partey as if that's going to be our main midfield. They're both very similar. Arsenal wasted a lot of money on Thomas Partey. But apparently this is the season where he's going to show everybody. I doubt it somehow. But we just appear to be going through the motions as a football club, and the penny will eventually drop. We will drop. If we carry on down this road within 3 and 5 years, we will no longer be a Premier League club. We will be a Championship club. And then what are you going to do? Be spending money on cast-offs from the Premier League to get us out of the Championship? Rinse and repeat at that level as well. There needs to be a real understanding about what is going on. Because to go from the George Graham era, Arsene Wenger era, and the Invincible era to what we are now, it really does beg a belief. And it's not going to be fixed in one transfer window. It's not going to be fixed by the influencer speaking to the new player. It's not going to be fixed about that. It's going to be fixed first and foremost by going through the squad with a fine-tooth comb and having the courage, and I say courage, to make unpopular decisions. And until we get to that level and start to do those things, we won't make any progress mid to long term.
Ah, dear me. The prophets of doom.
I'm depressed already. Thank God I follow Claire.
Levan J says, you guys speak the truth about our beloved club, and it needs to be said. Arsenal have won too much, and it's sad reality. It's not doom, it's the truth. Thank you for that, Levan. Sorry, Tel, did you want to say something, Tel? I just kind of...
Well, no, I was just going to say that last comment is so true. I mean, I've been on to Tony. I'm friends with people like Andrew, Big Andy. All these guys have been following Arsenal for absolutely decades, you know, and they go home and away. They go to Europe, you know, but none of them buy the recent kit. They say total waste of time. They love Arsenal. They're unhappy with this token business that started up, you know, this cryptocurrency. And I said to Tony, but what happens if you don't have enough of the cryptocurrency and they won't let you get a cup final ticket? If God, please God, we managed to get to a cup final. And, you know, he just had to shrug his shoulders and say, what can you do? And that's the tragedy. We've now got a club where long-standing supporters are shrugging their shoulders and saying, what can you do? Well, all I'd say is, can we have our club back, please? Can we have some fans representation? Can we have some ex-players on the board? And can we bring it back to its roots where it should be? All clubs should have a reflection of the area that they grow up into. Have an international presence. That's absolutely fantastic. But let's not lose what the club used to be, which was a club that we could all identify with. And as James has said, I'm struggling to identify with what's going on there now. They're not asking me. They're not listening to us about how we want the club to. We're prepared for a few years in the doldrums where we can build again, build our youth squad up, build towards a better Arsenal. But going out and spending big money, and basically I was thinking in preparation for this program, if you look back on the last sort of decade or so, we've lurched around. We bought Sanchez and then he was good, and then he won us the FA Cup when we were losing against Hull, and then he went, and then we got somebody else, we got Aubameyang. There's no continuous, that you don't feel that the club knows where it's going. It's lurch here, lurch there, and we've become a cup team. And as everybody knows who follows soccer, what you really want is a club that wins the championship, the club that wins and then goes on to make a good fist of the Champions League. That's what creates a good club, and that only happens, and we're going to mention Leicester again, when you have a team that have somebody with their hand on the tiller or on the steering wheel, and is making you proud. The Leicester guys and fans must be proud of what their team has done in the face of the Man Cities of this world, who are basically owned and funded by an entire country, which is absolute madness.
Gail says, I see the management and as characters from the film Dumb and Dumber. They don't seem to have a clue that their decisions are at times completely mystifying and amateurish. Just a few more before we wrap up this one. What else do we have here? Green Man TV says, we sold our soul. I haven't sold my soul. I still have my soul. What else do we have? Levan says, Leicester also won the Premier League in 2016.
Yep.
Yep.
Actually, that's going to be the question I had for James. James, literally, now we're in this mire. For me, myself, I can't see Arsenal being back in European football, maybe minimum for 3 years. So as a blueprint, who should Arsenal be looking at and saying, all right, this is the blueprint that we should follow to get ourselves where we should be? Which team do you think Arsenal should be? Actually, which club do you think Arsenal should be looking at and saying, we need to be like that club?
Well, I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture. Obviously, domestically, you're looking at Leicester. If you look at Spain, for example, Villarreal have made fantastic progress, and those two in particular, they have great owners that care about the football club. At the minute, Stan Kroenke is answerable to no one. There's no AGM anymore. There's no people venting their spleen about Stan Kroenke. There's no people telling him to his face what's going on. He's answerable to no one, absolutely no one. And it's a very long, hard season, a very long, hard season. And the first fork in the road we know that our fan base is going to overreact. We're away to Brentford on a Friday night. We might not win that. And then there's your starter for 10. And then we've got Manchester City and Chelsea. And we need to just the simple realization is that we are not what we were. We are a pale shadow of what we used to be. And as a football club, we are slowly dying, only to be replaced by a brand that plays football, that has that great new video out to sell the latest merchandise. Well, it's not important, is it? Do you think that Leicester are doing those things? Do you think that Villarreal are doing those things? Do you think that Rennes are doing those things? But no, we've come so far away from what we used to be. It really is criminal. And people say about moving to the Emirates to get with the times. Well, look at since we've been at the Emirates, if you look at everything, the fan base and the match day experience and that kind of thing, it's as if now some of the fan base, it's all about them. It's not about the football club. I mean, as I say, this is my 32nd season in Arsenal. I don't know how many games I'm going to follow from Amsterdam, but I've also been told as well by many fans on Twitter that I'm not a real Arsenal fan because I live in the Netherlands. I told them that I was born in Hampstead and raised just outside and attended Arsenal games from Amsterdam to London. But then again, it's a bit of a shock when they hear that because, some can't even comprehend that. But, we used to have such togetherness as a fan base. Terry made a great point in this podcast today, and I think it's the last point that I want to make, particularly to the younger generation watching this podcast. I know it's been quite long, but very enjoyable. Terry made a great point of when he would stand in the clock end and when he would stand in the North Bank and he would listen to the elder statesmen. He would listen to what they've got to say and how players used to be and how Arsenal used to be. I advise people when they're backing stadiums this season with a bit of luck, try to do the same. Worry about taking that photo with the influencer who doesn't give two hoots about you. Try and speak to the elder statesmen about what it used to be like. Bergkamp, Henry, Wenger, George Graham, Kevin Campbell, Ian Wright. Because without our history, we are nothing. And we are slowly coming away from our history. It's criminal. And it's going to be a very long and very hard season. And I worry that I'm going to have to repeat a lot of what I said last summer again this season. But as they say in Dutch, at one point the bucket is full, as they say here, where it's overflowing with water and that kind of thing. So be very interesting to see what happens.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, listen, we've come to an end on this one. Wonderful. So again, I've just seen a lot of comments saying, why can't we have James and Neltel a lot more often on Cannon Fodder? Well, if you don't know this, Terry lives less than 10 minutes from here in North London, from where I live. And James, yeah, Joe, it's a long story. That's not the first time they've been here. They've been on here before. It's just that you guys in a live chat, you've not seen these guys because you're new. But yeah, they've been here for 3 years and counting. 3 years and counting. But Neltel, all the way in Ireland. Thank you for coming in back on Cannon Fodder. It's been a pleasure. And also, Tim, is Tim watching now? Tel?
Yeah, I definitely got a text or something there from Tim to say he was watching. So definitely a big hi to Tim over there. I'm here now in Scariff in County Clare. And hopefully I'll be back. I'm going to the market town of Ennis now, and hopefully I'll be back and watching him work with the under-13 hurlers. And if anybody wants to get a little break away from football, go and watch some hurling. It is the most amazing sport and I've ever seen in my life. It is so thrilling. It is unbelievable. And when I was a little kid, just a story, coming over to Ireland as a little boy, there'd be big matches, and every now and again a priest or a bishop would have a heart attack at half time. And I used to wonder, well, what kind of a game is it that the local clergy and that's what stuck in my mind. And I'm sure Tim's laughing at this. And of course, I now realise, because hurling, you see, if you score a goal, it's 3 points, and the whole match can turn on a goal. So I spent €49, I think it was, on the GAA Go sort of website, and I'm able to watch most hurling matches. And while Arsenal weren't doing much in the summer, I was watching those, and the excitement level is fantastic. Maybe I could sign off by just giving everybody, I know we've got some people in South America watching, I'll just pull back the curtain and finish off. There's the view I'm looking out on now. The hills of Tipperary, County Clare in the foreground, and the Shannon River wending its way to the sea. So that's what I'm looking at. It's absolutely gorgeous. The supermarket shelves are full and everything is good.
Tel, can you show us the emblem again on your top, on your jersey, the emblem?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
So that says, you have to get Tim to read the Irish, but it says, first into battle, last out. And maybe next time I'll tell you the story of why Clare play in saffron, because there's a wonderful story behind that too.
Brilliant. And James, yeah, that's some quality stuff as always. You know, you've got our support. You know that anyway, James. Any last words you want to say?
Thank you very much. Well, just it's been great to be back. Thank you to everyone for their patience. It was a very busy Euros, so working for Coral and also being part of BBC Radio Wales and appearing on BBC Sport as well, which is fantastic. Nice to be exclusive to the Secret Footballer publisher, and I'm really excited about what's coming up. There's deliberately I've got a consecutive run of quite big names, including among others John Solarco, Ramon Vega, Torsten Fink, Warren Barton, and Brian Roy. So there really are some fantastic stories about how professional footballers came to be professional footballers, and making sure that you get all the information out there to help educate football fans. And looking forward as we go in the direction of what will eventually be 400 interviews. So very excited, and hopefully the dream of working on the media side of a professional football club isn't too far away. There's been some really interesting developments on the LinkedIn, but we're not there yet. But nice to get over the 5-year threshold and to have so much experience, and onwards and upwards, as I say.
Brilliant. So there you go. It just felt a little bit strange having my guests contributors back on the channel for the longest time. But it's again, just looking at the comments, I think people really appreciated your thoughtfulness, both you tell and James, and cannon fodder. You know, we're not here to like kind of gloss things over for you. If it looks like a duck, it sounds like a duck, it's basically a duck. Well, anyway, guys, listen, thank you for that. And if you want to know what you need to do now, make sure you subscribe, be part of the community. But anyway, if you've been wondering who or what you've been listening to, you've been listening to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all